Wall Street winners. It is Monday, September the 8th, and it's an interesting narrative right now in the markets. If we take a look at what's coming up this week, it's really a couple of big data points that will lead into the Fed's decision on September 17th, the Fed being the US Federal Reserve, to potentially lower interest rates. And those are CPI and PPI. So the producer price index, which is the cost of goods from a production perspective, and then CPI, the consumer price index, the cost of goods from a consumer perspective. And they have a basket of goods that they look at there. Now, that basket can change, so the numbers can be a little misleading if you're comparing apples to oranges. But if you compare the same baskets over time of goods, then there should be some consistency that allows you to see inflation and inflation movements up or down. And that inflation will be one element of the two mandates of the US Federal Reserve, which is employment, and employment or jobs numbers have been on the decline. Unemployment has been increasing. So that's a motivator for them to reduce rates. And the second is inflation, and inflation, primarily due to tariffs, but for other reasons as well, has been on the increase. So with inflation on the increase, that's another reason that helps to justify the U.S. Federal Reserve in making an interest rate reduction. So, what does this all mean? Well, it usually means that the markets are a little skeptical and things tend to turn red and go down, but it's the exact opposite right now. And the potential reason behind that, because obviously this is all speculation. But the narrative on the street is that with the US Fed pointing towards a rate reduction, which President Trump has clearly been asking for a number of months now and feels is long overdue, and that we haven't had one for a few years, there's some positive momentum in the markets thinking that we now could get a couple of rate cuts this year where we haven't had one at all up until this point. And we're not looking at a rate increase, which is another pro or positive for the market. So we may get a rate cut, and it may be bigger, not 25 basis points or a quarter of a percent, maybe half a percent come September 17th. And that is causing the markets to fire on all cylinders heading into this middle of September potential rate cut environment. That's where we are. Be risk averse, but there is opportunity to make money in the markets these days. I'm looking at the financial sector, Goldman Sachs in particular, and looking to get in on that before earnings. Good luck in your trades. If you like the videos, please hit the like and subscribe button.